What's up, guys? This is part 2. I wanted to break this up at the turn and I forgot. So, if you didn't see hole 10, just feel free to go back to part 1 and just find the very last hole that we played. And that's where that 10th hole will be. But what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to split these up. Now, one of the things that I wanted to show you guys for this one, let me just get back in here. Make sure we're good to go. We're going to switch our fusion back to a barchetta. That's what we used. We are going to, what I like to use for this, we're going to switch this back to Spectra. I'm a huge Spectra guy. And we'll activate this. So max is here. One of the things that you might want to do with your clubs is scan and see what it looks like. Since a lot of times, is that 20? 22 rings. Now, why is that important? What I'm going to do is for this ring span on this club, we're going to put it in as 22. That's a very good estimation. Maybe just a hair under 22, but all things considered, pretty good span for my typical hip 5 Spectra setup. So with that being said, we can get a better estimation for the shot just by counting rings for max. So if that's max line, there's 5, there's 10. This is 10 rings for max. Now, what's the ball guide look like? 10 rings for max. It's still a little bit too aggressive, so we'll come back another ring. That's 11 rings for max. In this case, specifically, it's going to work out to very close to mid club. So you'll find that 11 rings for max is going to be real close from mid. You can actually see it's mid 50. So in this one isolated case, it's going to be mid 50. However, you'll find, 44% or 64%, like you'll want to factor in and play that percentage with whatever you count. And this is a specific example of a time that you can get the best use out of this. So 6 and a third, I'm thinking right around here rings. But what you're going to see is you're going to be a lot more dialed with your shots than if you don't do it. So as you can see, it's coming in real nice. We gave it a very aggressive run. Very easy to be able to make that for eagle. So definitely be focused on using that slider and always using the wind directional arrow tool. It's going to definitely make it to where you can get much more precise calculations. And if you guys don't know what app that is, I'm just going to scroll right out real quick. Guide for Ultimate Golf, free for Android users, free for iOS users, and definitely gives you the luxury of just having that ring value when you need it and being able to get precise calculations. So here you can see, we're just going to reset that slider on the right-hand side. And we're going to keep going with some holes. Just kind of getting this out as much as possible. Similar strategy here. You can see, we basic ball. We've been really fortunate to be able to play through a lot of these holes, pick up a lot of strokes with very minimal ball effort. So one of the things that you'll see, we're kind of in between clubs here. Always bring your best backspin club when you get yourself in kind of a nasty spot like this. So the root is going to be a lifesaver for you guys, but it's a very conditional club. Can't use it all the time, but this is specifically a good time where you can. Now this is going to break just a hair to the left. With the right wind, it almost might straighten out. Now, one of the things that you'll want to do is you'll probably want to go to the side. So, for instance, where is this ball guide? So if this is the high point of the ball guide, it's about a ring up. It's going to land about here. So this is where the ball is going to land. So right about here. How many rings is this from the pin? So it's, count them. 1, 2, 3, almost 4. We want that spot where it was going to roll out to be about 4 rings, or maybe 3, 7, 5. short of where we're aimed. And since this is the min line, this is as low as we can go. And here in this situation, it's saying 6.3. But keep in mind, we're still about 3 3/4 rings too much in the north. We're past the hole and then past where it's going to land by about 3.75 rings. So after we do our adjustment, was that the right adjustment? That feels a ring short. Let's come back here. I'm going to redo that pull. I don't trust what I just did. I'm going to redo that. Sorry for you guys. But do be very careful that you're counting right. I feel like I underpulled one ring on accident. I'm fairly certain. And you don't want to mess up your shot as a result. I definitely had to have because I know I wasn't in this sand. Okay. So now, there's a couple variables at play. One, we've pulled the target down to lower ground. I want you guys to understand what that means. So that means it's going to land probably, I would say at least a half ring shorter just because we've pulled down into a lower elevation because of that. And then also you'll see the bullseye was up here and it snapped back to down here. I'd imagine we're at least a half ring north or south of where our true adjustment was. Keep in mind, we were about 3.75, so I'm not going to pull down more than 3 1/4, and that, even that might be a little bit too much. So what we're going to do here is we'll get this alignment, and you can see how I have the shot view, just kind of straight down this arrow, and we're just going to pull down right to the min club here. It's about 3 rings short, kind of right on the target of where we want. Let's go for ultimate. Let's see if we can't give this a nice little run. Ooh, so just comes in a little bit hot. You can actually see somebody there bringing it in with a special ball. But you can see we're able to still come at that with precision type accuracy. So it's still something that you guys want to stay fairly aggressive on. So hole 13 now, and you'll see driver. Since we're going to be pulling up towards max, I'll probably stay on this. Otherwise, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll switch to fusion. But in the one case, the reason that I won't here is because we're going to be very close to max. Let me just re-enable this real quick. I think I might have got timed out here. Just give me 1 second, guys. We're going to keep rolling with this around. I'm just using on the back end. I'm just getting this unlocked for myself again. So one of the things that we're going to do here is we'll do 10-3. I don't know how many rings this is, but we might do a little bit of an overpull. Is that 5, 7 rings, I'd say. This is kind of a good idea to kind of set up your span for this club. 7 rings with basic ball. Of course, that'll expand. What we're going to do is we're going to be pulling from min, or very close to min. So 5-10. So if we start real close to min line, pull up, it's going to be about 5.10 rings. Of course, we'd like to land right on the front here. It should pull me pretty close to the max line. Now, I would suspect that this ball guide's going to condense down. So you do want to still have it a little bit through the hole. So it might look like, you know, it's going to roll out a little bit, but I can tell you that it's going to compress down. So you want to factor that into your shot. Like I mentioned, about 5-10. Ideally, if we can land on the green, we definitely want to. So, you know, if you see this doesn't land on the green, you guys will probably want to make a tweak. But you can see, as you can see, it still is into the green. But you never want to, if anytime you can set up on the green, you want to avoid the fairway. Just a little bit less consistent. Now, the only thing that you can see, I didn't quite play enough slope for the break. I tried to play a little bit. I knew it was going to break right to left, but that bounce, the very first bounce, bounced a little bit more left than I was anticipating. I expected the rollout to be, but not necessarily that bounce. But use that to your advantage and just try to make a little bit of tweak to what I did, and hopefully you guys will have just a little bit greater success. Here you can see, nice wide open fairway, huge fairway. Just make sure you never go in this rough because the fairway is so massive. Just need to keep the ball in play here. We're going to reset that mid slider. Try to get in the habit of doing that so it doesn't affect your next shot. And of course, we've already set the span for this club. So you don't have to set the span multiple times. We're going to be pretty close. Oh, we're actually on the wrong club, though. So with Bigfoot, the span is 7. So span is 7 on Bigfoot. Keep in mind, if I try to open it up with Spectra, it'll change a little bit. Or, Orion. So your ring span's going to change in the event that you do that. And keep in mind, this time we're going to set up at the min line. It's right at 7 rings, so that's going to be full span. So we're going to have to set up on this fairway in this case. Because we just don't have enough room. The only other way would be short hitting. But you're also going to see that I notably keep this ball guide long intentionally, because after we adjust rings, it's going to condense down considerably. So it might look like bounce 2 is going to land pretty close to the hole. I bet you it ends up checking up and actually being a pretty nice shot here. Other than that, I'm just going to maybe position right edge. And then we're just going to adjust this 705 rings that it tells me with about this spin. So let's give this a go, see what it looks like. And as you can see, coming in very nice. Like I said, it checks up tremendously. Even though it looks like it, if bounce 2 is landing right by the hole, what about bounces 3, 4, and 5? You got to keep in mind that ball guide is collapsing down so much. And you can see we're able to still stay fairly aggressive and still be able to hole out. Even with these early clubs, there's a lot of opportunity for you to really elevate your score just by getting 1 or 2 of these to start dropping. So you never want to, just kind of casually play something. You want to always try to give it your best effort. All we're going to do is position this to the left side of the fairway. A little bit of left curl. There's no way you can go too far left. It's almost impossible. So any momentum that you can give it to the left, as long as you land on the fairway, you should be good for this hole. And as you can see, we're able to, again, use it on a budget ball. So this, if there was ever a hole that I was going to tell you guys that you should use a ball to avoid, making a mistake, it would definitely be this one. You don't want to do anything foolish here. Now, what I used to do is maybe 2, 3 top spin here and try to play this fairway, and that's more or less what we're going to try to do. This is going to have a lot of breaks. So you can see I'm over here to the left-hand side, to the right-hand side. It's going to break substantially. So I want this to kind of be where it lands. And you'll see what I mean after we play this. So let's reset back to Viting. Always reset that slider as well so you're not getting incorrect data. But let's go at 10-3. Very close to mid-ish number, I would say. So 4-8. Keep in mind, since we're using topspin and not backspin, we need to overplay it. I talked about this briefly on some of the other holes. When we're using topspin versus backspin, your ring data is not going to be good. So you need to, convert a little bit of overplay. I'm going to do about 9% here, and we're going to go about 5-3 in this scenario. Keep in mind that we're also offset playing the break as well. So you need to factor in all this. So if the standard adjustment was 4.8. We're actually going 5.3 for mid. So that's a substantial, about 10% overplay. So make sure that you're factoring in very similar logic for yours. And of course, you cannot great ball this one to the right. There's just not enough room. But keep in mind, look at how my ball's coming in. It might just be just a touch high, but you can see exactly what we're trying to do. I mean, that was maybe 0.1 rings heavy, 0.15 rings heavy. It's right in the ballpark. As soon as it kicks there and hits that slope just a little bit more, it starts turning dramatically to the left. So we were just a little bit high, but what it does is it leaves us an easy putt. So a little over adjust there does not hurt. So definitely recommend that. You'll see, especially in the early game, you're probably going to be down on the bottom of that hill because you're just not going to factor in enough for the longest time for the slope. But the more experienced players definitely try to keep it up a little bit more higher. Leaves for a very easy putt on top of that hill. So definitely remember that, because you don't want to get too aggressive, especially if you're not using the special balls and can't really go at it with like a precision backspin shot. So let's keep rolling here. This is hole 16. I'm going to just try to whip this around the corner. Of course, great right should be fine. Not enough curl yet to start bringing the trees into play, but you can see on some of these I get a little bit close, but no real threat unless you were really aiming over there to the right substantially. So let's take a look at what this looks like. Ideally, I want to stay within club. And this is what I would say maybe 4 rings from, this is probably about 4 rings from that max line. Maybe we'll push up just a little bit. 3 rings from the max line. We'll call this 3 rings from the max line. And what does that mean? We're going to use, and you can also see with the ball guide, it's really jerking to the right here. So we're going to keep that in mind. Keep the ball guide just a little bit short as well, because it's going to stretch out. So this is kind of like our initial spot that we're going to use as our starting point. The other thing, we're going to do wind arrow. And we're going to do, like I mentioned, about 3 rings for max. So what adjustment does it give me? 7.5 rings. So 7.5 rings, and we might utilize this spot because to factor in the ball guide stretching out. So keep all that in mind. And like I mentioned, we're going to try to go right on 7.5 for our ring adjustment. So right around there, looks pretty good, 7.5. Let's just see what it looks like. Like I mentioned, I think there's some really good chances on this setup. You can try to, it looks like it's maybe just coming in a little bit hot, but you can see definitely has potential to shoot down that hill. We would have just kept it a little bit shorter. You see there's a lot of slope here, so that's very similar to what we're doing, and we're just trying to get it right behind the hole, and it just kind of sucks down the hill. So that's more or less really what we were looking for there, and a really good chance to potentially bring that back if it just wasn't quite as intense of a wind, or just a little bit less tailwind would be even better too. So keep that in mind for your shot, and maybe just kind of switch my ball guide up just a touch. You guys should be good to go. Now we're going to try to do this one with a little bit more precision. Of course, I still caught the great ball. So I'm trying to avoid going into the left rough, and hopefully this does. I'm a little worried with the great ball. Nope, we should still be good. Once you start getting a little bit longer club, you got to keep in mind, that might clip this left. Like you're really trying to go up this gully here with the better clubs. But in the early going, I like to attack this so we can kind of keep the distance short. Now, what did we do on the front 9? We set this up. If you guys didn't see the part 1 video, we set this up in seconds. So it's something that you guys can do as well. Set up very quick for our hypnotic. And then reset my slider here. And then we're just going to get a nice estimation for the depth of this shot, which is going to be, you can see the 50% mark is right at the very, very front of the green. It's this one. right here. This line right here was right around 50%. So if this is my 50% mark, this is really close to the power number I'm going to use. One of the things that I'll typically do is I'll definitely go about full backspin on a shot like this. The ball guide is going to try to stretch out. And also see the bounces are very left. Like I mentioned, right around 50%, maybe a tad bit more. I mean, it's real close to this adjustment. 2.6. Of course, like I mentioned, we're just going to try to utilize a little bit of this slope as well. Oh, so just coming in a little bit hot. We should have definitely set up just a little bit shorter. So if you guys see very similar, you should have the exact same wind angle. Just try to get it and try to land it just a little bit more on the front of that, because you can see with the missing ball guide, it just has that much more that it's still rolling out, even with the wind direction the way that it is. And keep in mind, let's look at where we're at already. We're pretty good. Considering we haven't used any balls, this is pretty good. We've used very little balls. So if you guys want to just kind of skate by and then kind of save your balls for the last round, definitely the way that I recommend going. And you can see we can still stay very competitive here compared to the best scores. Now you can already see this wind straight in the face. I'm not even going to bother thinking I'm going to get the eagle here. So we're just going to, save a ball. Same thing. We're just going to play for the 22 number. Not even try to, we're just going to accept whatever score we have. You can see with the right curl here, we should be good. Now I'd imagine, it's going to be headwind, headwind. So with headwind, headwind, we're just going to get the ball out in play. Switch back to maybe even El Capitan in this situation, if we can. Here's Viking. It's not even going to really benefit us. I'm just going to go more precision. One of the worst things that you can do in this scenario is actually go in the rough. So what we're going to do instead is we're just going to be very methodical with our setup. About 5 rings, and we'll just curl it around this way. Keep in mind, like I mentioned, do not get too aggressive. When you're this far out, it's just not worth it. Anything in the rough, you might not get your birdie. So don't try to overdo this. So definitely highly recommend staying fairly conservative. Get yourself a nice, clean look. There's max club, there's min club. We mentioned this club has what? If you guys remember, it's about a 7 ring span. 7.1, we set this up in this stream. So if you guys didn't see it, feel free to go back a couple holes. In this scenario, we're going to set up at min. So we're going to do 7 rings for min, for max, I mean. And we're going to use the ring adjustment, which is it's giving me 7 rings. Very similar to the other hole that we did this on. We're going to keep this ball guide aggressively through the hole. Much more than we would otherwise. Because you got to keep in mind, this is going to slowly stretch down. So even if you see my ball guide going through the hole like that, I'm thinking it might even come up short. So I'm not even going to really touch my spin here. We're going to go back to default 0. Very front of the green. 7 ring adjustment. And let's try to stay aggressive because there's no reason that we cannot eagle this. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that I'm a little bit to the right of the hole. I expect it to break just a little bit more. We're going to go pretty spot on. 7 rings here. Like I said, I expect it to kind of slow down and start breaking more to the left. But definitely try to stay fairly aggressive here because there's no reason you can't make this. Just take, you can see it's doing exactly what I mentioned. It's checking up and it's taking that break. It just didn't, if it would have just, and even bounces 1, 2, they kind of bounce straight. If just one little tick mark of, break on one of those initial bounces, we would have totally had that shot. So we still gave our shot at that eagle. But you can see with the setup here, we used almost no balls. So if you guys go back over this, we're top 10 here with no balls being used. We used, I think, 2 Mojaves, so 16 basic balls. It's a very easy way to start getting your account up. And we're going to be into the finals with a decent 22 tiebreaker. 5th place tiebreaker. The only thing we were missing is the, on green points. There's no reason I couldn't have picked up, more than 1,200 points. Let's think about the ones that I threw away in the round, and we definitely could have improved. So definitely keep that in mind and try to make those adjustments. And let's just see what we're playing for. So let's discuss this again. So keep in mind, we've done 2 rounds here. We've used virtually no balls. I think I've used 2 Mojaves and nothing. This next full round, we can go all out because everything top 50 or above, we're going to already get our balls back. As long as we're top 50, we've gotten all the balls back. We can go Mojave on everything and still bring in some nice rewards. So this is the strategy that you guys want to focus on. Keep in mind, you're going to have the same wind angle as me, so you can do the exact same shots. These are shot guides for you guys. They're available for free. Feel free to check them out. Feel free to, pass them along to your buddies, clan members, so you guys are all on the same page. You guys are all in the same clan, and you guys get yourself the same shots, the same performances. You guys are going to all perform well together. Feel free to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. Like I mentioned, pass this video along to your friends. It's definitely going to get you guys on the right track and lowering those scores immediately. Feel free to comment, reach out to me if you guys have additional questions or need some clarification points. Best of luck out there, and see you guys next time. Take care.